What's up? What's up? It's Ouija. Some of you guys probably already know me from my Twitch channel. This will be the opening video for the channel, actually. Well, not really the opening video, but it's a series I'm going to start doing from now on. I just kind of wanted to make a channel where, a bunch of us could kind of hang out and talk, kind of watch these videos and have discussions about them and everything. Yeah, this one tonight that we're going to be watching is going to be top 3 random encounters with serial killers. So I think that'll be a little bit interesting to get into. Kind of find out what that's about. The video is by Mr. Ballin. The link to the original video will be in the description below. So if you want to check out his channel, he does a lot of stuff like this, like real, real creepy like crime stories, murder mysteries, stuff like that. It's pretty good content to go ahead and go check that out as well. But without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into this and see what we can see.
Experts believe in the United States alone there are at least 2,000 active, uncaught serial killers just running wild.
2,000.
Which means if you live in America, you may have already had an interaction with a serial killer. You just didn't know it. But today, I'm going to share
I don't know about that.
3 progressively more disturbing cases of Americans that had an interaction with a serial killer, but came to find out later that it was a serial killer. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all I do, and I upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, then please schedule the like button for a fight with Paul on the day before Thanksgiving in Quincy, Massachusetts. Also, please subscribe to my channel and turn on all notifications.
There you go. Go check him out. Go check him out.
All right, let's get into today's stories.
Now, 2,000 may not even sound like a lot compared to the actual population of the U.S., but it's like, that's 2,000 serial killers. And they could be like literally anywhere. Like, anywhere.
After spending 21 years in the U.S. Army, a man retires and moves to Central Florida with his wife and young son. Although his family had plenty of money because he had a pension coming in and his wife still worked full-time, he just got bored really quickly after moving to Central Florida and decided he would just take a job doing something just to stay occupied. And so he ended up taking a job at a highway gas station. One of the primary reasons he chose this particular job is because the owners of
I'm guessing he's meaning like a truck stop like Love's or something.
the gas station didn't care if his son came along to help him stock shelves and hang out behind the cash register. And so for years, that's just how it went. The man would work at the gas station and his son would tag along. Even after his son became a teenager and you'd think might be wanting to do other things, well, the town was so small, there was almost nothing to do. So his son still came along well into his teenage years. One night in 1990, his son, who was 15 years old at the time, was at the station and he was actually taking a break sitting outside on a picnic table. He was reading a magazine, drinking a Mountain Dew, and it's dark out, and he notices out of the corner of his eye that there is a woman walking off of the highway towards the gas station. It was a very quiet night at the time, so there's no cars getting gas, there's nobody there, and there's not really anybody even driving on the highway, and so that's why she really stood out to him. And he turns and he notices her and he thinks to himself, no one ever walks to our gas station. We're on a highway. Everybody drives here.
That is true. Like, I've walked for several hours down a highway before. It's not pleasant. And yeah, there ain't no telling like where the heck she even came from.
So she must have broken down and she must be coming here to try to use our phone to call a tow truck or something like that.
Or that, yeah.
The woman is walking across the lot, coming closer and closer to the gas station, and the boy at this point has turned his attention back to his magazine, but he would say later that he kept looking up and keeping an eye on her because there was something off about her. The woman ultimately walks right behind him and goes in the door into the gas station. Doesn't acknowledge the boy, doesn't say hi to him, just walks straight inside, and she starts walking up and down the aisles of the gas station. Now, from where the boy was sitting, it's all glass, so he could clearly look in and see his father behind the counter, and he could see the head of this woman as she walked in and around all these aisles. And as soon as the woman was in the store, kind of pacing around the aisles, the boy put his magazine down and was just watching. And he noticed that she was not really shopping. She was just looking down for a few seconds, wouldn't pick anything up, so she wasn't buying anything. And she would look up at the counter where his father was. And
Yeah, see, when I was working retail and everything, with asset protection. Well, I never really worked under asset protection, but anyway, It's part of training regardless when you're in retail. But yeah, stuff like that, you instantly think in your brain like shoplifter, like, she could be watching the cashier, seeing when he's look away. She could be trying to swipe something. But that would have been my first thought. So I would have been watching her like a hawk regardless.
She would just stare at him, and then she'd look back down at what she was doing, and she would go through all the aisles. And at some point, the woman just kind of abandons this phony, I'm pretending to shop routine, and just walks up to the counter. Now, nobody else is in the store. There's nobody else coming in. And so the boy could actually fairly clearly hear what she was saying to his father. And she told his father that she had broken down and she needed a ride, and could he drive her to Ocala, which was the next big town north of this gas station. And the boy would say that his father acted very strangely, because his father is normally incredibly pleasant with all the customers. He's very chatty even. Like, he talks to everybody who comes in the store. But as soon as this woman had gone in, his dad had seemed kind of dismissive and almost rude to this woman, and when she was talking to him, asking for a ride, he just said, no, I won't give you a ride. The woman is annoyed by how quickly she's been shot down, but instead of just taking
See, that's a smart thing right there. I think he probably knew something was up.
no for an answer, she turns and looks at the boy who's sitting out on the bench, who's looking right at her, and she points at the boy, and she says, what about him? Is he your son? Can he give me a ride? The boy notices that his father, who's not within her eyesight, is looking at his son going, no. Like, whatever she wants from you, you're going to say no to it. And the boy's
Yeah, see, he knows. He knows.
a little bit confused by this, because he's still trying to understand why his dad was so against helping this woman, because she clearly needs our help, or someone's help. But he just took his dad at face value, and when the woman's pointing at him, he knew, the boy, that if she came over and asked him, he would say no. But it wouldn't come to that, because the boy's father would say to the woman, no, my son's not going to give you a ride. You need to leave here immediately. Do not come back. Leave. We're not going to help you. She's furious. She's cussing him out. She storms out and slams the door. She starts cussing at the boy, and she walks off. The whole time she's turning around and flipping them off and screaming profanities at them, but she ultimately walks off, and the dad kind of followed her out and is standing next to his son as she walks off. And the boy asks his dad, like, what was her deal? Why did that happen? Why did you not want to help her? And the dad just said, I don't know. There was something off about her, and I don't know how to place it, but
She was looking for a target. She was trying to lure him out there or some shit. I guarantee it.
I did not want her around you. I knew I didn't want to give her a ride. I knew she had to go. A year later, the boy is in his room when he hears his dad in the other room yelling for him to come in here and look at the TV. So he runs into the TV room, and on the TV is the same woman from the gas station.
Oh, man.
Eileen Warnos. She was a serial killer who used to pick up her male victims at gas stations in Florida. It's unclear whether the boy or the boy's father were her next.
I'm telling you, man, like hitchhikers and stuff like that, you just don't know anymore. You just don't know anymore. Like, yeah. If he would have gave her a ride home, he probably would have been killed that night. That's crazy.
Victims. But by the time she had shown up at that gas station, she had already killed 4 people. And following that interaction with them at the gas station, she had gone on to kill 3 more people, including someone in Ocala, Florida, which was the town she had asked them to give her a ride to. Eileen had been caught, that's why she was on TV, and she was later sentenced to death.
Death penalty. She killed 7 people. Willingly, just on purpose. That's insane. It was almost 8.
In the late 1970s, a medical student going to school in Chicago had just gotten out of class and decided he didn't want to pay for a taxi, so he decided he would hitchhike his way home.
Oh,
this
no.
is something he routinely
This is already going to go bad at. Yep.
did, and at the time was socially acceptable. So he goes down to the road and he puts his thumb out, and eventually a car pulls up, and he would describe the man that is pulling up as looking normal and even friendly and lighthearted. It's a middle-aged guy, and he tells the student, hey, come on in, hop inside, I'll give you a ride. The student did not feel threatened by this guy and felt like overall this was safe, and so he hops in the passenger seat. He tells this man where he wants to go. He says, okay, and they start driving off. So as they're driving, it's silent.
I don't care how friendly he sounds. If you go and look at a lot of like cases when it comes to like serial killers and stuff like that, it's like they have that charismatic way of talking, and like they know what you want to hear, I guess is a good way to put it. But yeah, no, just why? Why would you hitchhike? Why would you get in a ride with a stranger? Just don't do that.
In the car, they're not making chit chat, they're just driving along, and the student notices that the man misses the turn to go where he needs to go. And so the student turns to the man and says, hey, you missed the turn. Do you mind turning around and going back this way? Or, if you want, you can just drop me off here and I'm happy to walk. We're not that far away. The man, who had seemed really nice and lighthearted, suddenly had this really intense demeanor come over him. And he turns and looks at the student and goes, oh no, you're coming with me. The student is frozen in fear.
Dude, oh my gosh. What if you were in that position and he said that? Man, dude, I'm sorry. We'd have to be throwing some hands. I'd be like, no, you better let me out of this car, truck, whatever. Because it ain't about to go down like that, you see?
He doesn't know what to do, but he knows immediately that this is not an idle threat. I don't know who he is, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be bad for me. I have to get out. And so as soon as the car began to slow down even a little bit, they're still driving, they're not stopped. The student unlocks the door, opens the car, and jumps out of the moving car and smashes into the ground, rolls against the side of the curb, but is ultimately unhurt. He's banged up from jumping out of a moving car, but he was able to stand up and run back to his house. He didn't call the police because he really didn't know what to tell them, because he didn't have a great description of the guy, he didn't have his license plate, and the guy didn't do anything
Tuck and roll. Get out of there. That's it. Get out of there.
totally aggressive. It was more of a threat, but an ambiguous threat at best. It wasn't really clear what he wanted to do with him. It definitely did not seem good, but it just wasn't enough for him to call the police. And so the student just feels lucky that he got out of there and moves on with his life. A couple of years go by. The student at this point has basically forgotten about this encounter with the stranger. And he's sitting in a cafe, he's drinking some coffee, and there's a TV on behind him. He wasn't paying attention to it, but the reporter on the TV said something that immediately piqued his interest. The reporter was talking about a guy that was currently on death row that apparently had removed all of the inside car door handles inside of his car after his first would-be victim, a college student, had apparently escaped by opening a car door while he was moving. The student runs
Wow.
over to the TV.
Wow. What? He was the only one that got away from that guy. And because of that, he removed the car handles, or the door handles inside the car door. That's crazy.
And sees on the screen there is an image of the guy they're talking about, this guy on death row, and it's the same guy who gave him a ride 2 years earlier. His name was John Wayne Gacy, aka the Killer Clown. He had killed
Oh,
over
man.
30 men and boys in Chicago, and then after killing them in his clown room,
Heard about
he
him.
slipped them into a secret crawl space in his basement.
Yeah.
And although we can't be certain,
Yeah, wasn't it 30-something, I think, is what they found? 30-something victims?
it seems extremely likely that this med student was supposed to be the first victim of John Wayne Gacy, but he leapt out of the car.
See, that's crazy because I've watched, like, documentaries and stuff before, and some of them have talked about John Wayne Gacy in detail, but, like, I never knew about the car handle, the door handle thing.
Forcing John Wayne Gacy to change his strategy and make sure the next person was not able to do that.
That's intense. Imagine the person who was in that vehicle next. And when they realize something's wrong, then they look down and realize, they intentionally had just made it to where I'm not getting out of this alive. It's insane.
In the 1970s, a young woman and young man were on their very first date together, and it wasn't going very well. It wasn't going badly, it was just really, really awkward. They just were not meshing at all. And so as they're getting ready to leave and retire for the night, the guy is thinking to himself, I have nothing to lose here. We're probably not going to go on a second date. And he says to the woman, hey, do you want to not go home right now and actually come on a hike with me? And he goes, I know this sounds like a terrible idea, but hear me out. I go mountain climbing in this area called Provo Canyon. It's not that far from here.
Nope, see you later, bye.
There are these beautiful trails that lead up the side of the canyon to these amazing scenic overlooks. And tonight, it's a new moon, so there's great visibility, and I just think that you might enjoy it. And so at first, the woman is obviously a little bit hesitant. But when he says, look, I go hiking there at night all the time. I love it out there, and I promise if there's any weirdness, if you don't like being there, we'll just turn around and leave. It's totally safe. And so after a little bit of coaxing, she finally says, okay, you know what? That sounds fun. Let's go do it. And so their date that had been really awkward suddenly became really exciting. And the two of them were kind of like thrilled, like, wow, look at us making our way up for a nighttime hike through Provo Canyon. And so they arrive at the mouth of this canyon, and they're both obviously excited. And they hop out and they start walking up this trail that brings them into a heavily forested section of the canyon. Now, to this point, the guy felt like this was a
Nobody around.
really great idea. He really had gone hiking here a bunch, and he really did know the area well. But as the trail brought them into the forested area, the guy remembers feeling this overwhelming sense of dread. He didn't know why, it was just like an overwhelming sense of anxiety that something bad was going to happen to them. But he had worked so hard to convince his date to come with him, and had convinced her it was safe, that he's not about to let on to her that there was anything wrong with what they were doing. And so he put on, his strong face and just kind of suppressed it and just kept on walking and, holding her hand tight, and they just continued their walk. But his sense of dread would just build and build to the point where he was really on edge. And what he didn't know, but would find out later, is that his date, the woman, she also had this horrible sense of dread as soon as they went into the forest. But she didn't want to tell him because she didn't want to seem like a party pooper, because he seemed really excited about it. At some point, as they're walking down this path, the man steps on something that felt soft. He didn't know what it was, but it caused him to freeze immediately.
Oh no. That's probably a body.
And he's holding her hand. He kind of jerks her to get her to stop. And before he can even look down and see what he's standing on, he hears rustling coming from the bushes just off the trail. She hears it too, and both of them, without saying a word to each other, because again, you got to remember, they're both really stressed. They haven't let on to the other how stressed they are, but they're both basically ready to leave. And so the two of them turn around and they hightail it out of there. He has no idea what he stepped on. They don't know what they heard in the bushes, but they don't care. The anxiety was so high, they just wanted to leave. Years later, that man and woman who had this very strange date would actually be married. And they'd be sitting down watching TV together, and they're flipping through the channels, and they land on an interview with a death row inmate. And the interviewer is asking the inmate, was there ever a time that you were almost caught red-handed? And the guy being interviewed says, yes, one time. I was in the forest up in Provo Canyon one night, and a young couple came walking up the trail. I didn't see them, so I only had a chance to jump into the bushes right next to the trail, and the guy actually stepped on the body of a girl I had just killed. But for some reason, he didn't look down and see what he was standing on, and the two of them didn't notice me just a few feet away from them. They just turned around and walked away.
It's really as simple as that. Dang. He stepped on somebody's body, and the killer was like right there in the bushes. That's insane. Like, and imagine they end up getting married, and then years later they're watching TV, and then boom, oh, there's a death row inmate. You almost caught him murdering somebody like years ago. What?
Turns out that young couple had run into one of the worst serial killers of all time.
Oh man, who do y'all think it is? Who do you think it is? He didn't give like a time frame. Maybe it's Jeffrey Dahmer, maybe? I don't know. He gave a location. I'm not sure. Let's see who it is.
Ted Bundy.
Oh, man. Wow.
Before Bundy was executed, he confessed to over 30 murders. But many people believe the true number of victims is much, much, much higher. So that's going to do it, guys. Let me know what you thought of these three stories in the comment section.
Bundy.
And let me know how you would respond
Ted Bundy.
if it turned out you had actually interacted with a serial killer. Not only will I respond to all the early commenters, I will also pin the...
Yeah, I don't know what I would... I guess I'd thank my lucky stars I wasn't murdered. Honestly, I mean, heck, dude, Ted Bundy. That's insane. Oh. So let me know in the comment section, like, what would you do if you had found out that you had randomly encountered a serial killer? Let me know in the comments below. If you check the links and everything on my channel, it has the link to my Twitch channel as well. I do live stream like gameplay footage and stuff there, so you can come there, give me a follow, then we can hang out there, talk, and everything as well. But yeah, that's going to do it. Like I said, hit subscribe if you enjoyed watching, hit the notification bell, so you get notified when I do an upload. But until then, I will see you guys next time.